Hey everyone, my name is Zora Stephenson. I am a reporter, host, and play-by-play announcer at NBC Sports. I'm so used to telling everyone else's story, but here goes on telling mine. Welcome to Her Table.
Now you see her.
You are magnificent!
Welcome to Her Table, the podcast that shines a spotlight on the badass women who are redefining the game. Join hosts Kate Foley and Megan Martinez as they unlock the secrets of success from the brightest female pioneers in the industry.
Welcome back for another amazing episode of Her Table. We have the one and only Zora Stephenson with us today. I am so excited to learn from her. She has been North Carolina, Virginia, the Bucks, Denver. Now she's on NBC all over sports. I cannot wait to hear what she's up to and how she got where she is, because there is no path or program written for her.
I'm so excited to have Zora on. She has that background playing basketball at Elon University. Then she's made her way from North Carolina to a national network. I'm so excited to hear from her, to see, how she got to where she is today. And yeah. So let's welcome Zora Stephenson on Her Table.
Well, I'm so excited we could have you here on Her Table today. We are obviously remote. Megan is in studio in California, and I am remote in Phoenix today. So we are all out and about, spread across this country, but I'm so glad that we got to have you on the show.
No, and I'm representing for the Midwest right now. I'm just honored that you all had me on the show. You've had so many amazing voices so far. I've been listening to a ton of the episodes, so thank you so much for having me.
Of course. No, it's funny. I was saying the other day, the best part about this show is what it does for my cup and what it does for Megan's cup. Just sharing so many other people's stories and women who are in different places in their careers and different paths, and how intertwined everything really is. It's honestly, it's the universe talking in magical ways. It's the craziest thing.
Well, no matter if we've met in person or not, we're all 6 degrees of separation. It's even closer than that. Probably just one or two, and we're all still going to figure this thing out, right? No matter where you are in your career, it's there is no rule book or map, right? I tell anyone that asks for advice, I can share my journey, but just because you're on your own path doesn't mean that we can't meet the most.
I love that. I love it. Okay, well, tell our audience and our everyone listening, kind of give us the rundown. I've kind of jumped around a little bit, and you're from Northern Virginia, ended up in North Carolina. So can you kind of take us down the path of where you started and where you're at currently? Because you've had a couple of shifts, of amazing shifts for you in your career here of late.
For sure. Born in Washington, D.C., raised in Northern Virginia, played basketball my entire childhood and got the opportunity to play Division I basketball at Elon University in North Carolina. And I was there for 4 years, at captain for 2. And I knew I wanted to get to television, but it was how do you do that? I would call volleyball games. I would do weather reports. I would, get, school TV shows. I would do any and everything on campus. And I did a lot of news internships as well, right around the time I was graduating. I was okay, how do I get into sports? You both know sports is such a tough industry. I mean, most of the jobs that are around, you don't necessarily apply for. It's somebody helped you out. Preparation meets opportunity. And so when I graduated, all I could find was news jobs. And so I went to Greenville, North Carolina, and I worked as a one-woman band. Some people call it a one-man band. And that means I shot everything on my own camera. I wrote it all. I set up little live shots. Then I went on to, I did 3 to 4 different jobs every single day. And anytime I would call my parents and complain or vent, they'd say, Zora, this is like grad school. I would not, if anyone knows anything about the eastern part of North Carolina, you could drive 1 hour one way, 2 hours the other. I mean, I was driving all over this portion of
everywhere
by myself. Hurricanes, crime, politics, education, you name it. I did it, and I was there for 2 years. And then after that, I went to Denver, North Carolina, and did the exact same thing, just on a bigger stage, bigger city. And I covered this case called the Chris Watts case. It's a man who basically killed his entire family. Now a Netflix documentary. And I had been toying with the fact of the reason you wanted to get into TV was to tell sports stories. And but I had kind of ingrained myself in news. I actually really, really enjoyed it, and it taught me so many different things. But I was covering these awful, awful stories, and it was so hard for me not to take them home with me and not to marinate on the people that I had met, what they were going through, and it was taking its toll on. I said, okay, how do I get back to sports? How do I figure this thing out? So I started putting together a sports tape. I would cover the Colorado women's basketball games. I would cover D2 games, tape together. Got to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, got a job with the Bucks, and then everything has blossomed from there. I'm so grateful for my time with the Bucks. Was the team reporter, backup play-by-play announcer, and then my opportunity for NBC came from there. I called WNBA games. I've worked gymnastics. I've worked skiing, basketball, football, a little bit of everything. And this is beyond my wildest dreams. I'm so grateful every single day.
That's amazing. And you were the first female play-by-play announcer for the Bucks too, right? Like, let's speak on that. Like, that's such an incredible feat. Like, to be breaking barriers like that, like, that's incredible. Yeah. What was that like for you?
Yeah, when I filled in as play-by-play announcer in April of 2021, no woman had ever done it before for the Milwaukee Bucks. And I just wanted to do a good job, not just for myself, but for people and anyone that had the aspirations of being in that seat. So that, yeah, I was the first, but it's amazing. Now I'm not the last. The Bucks have the first ever full-time women's play-by-play announcer, Anissa Byington. She's amazing at what she does. So I'm just in awe of all the opportunities I've gotten. And I realized that I worked really hard for them, but I also had to have allies and people in my corner to help make those dreams reality. So shout out to the Bucks and everybody that went into allowing me to fill in for that one game. It was a team effort. We were working at it for a long time. It wasn't like on people think, oh, they just called me the week before and said, hey, like, can you fill in? Nope, we had been working at it because Peter Fagan, the Bucks president, really wanted to give me that opportunity, but also wanted to make sure that I was ready for it. So shout out to the entire organization.
Okay, so walk us through, like, you got the phone call of like, hey, this is going to happen. Were you like, holy shit? Or were you like, yes, sir? Like, it's about time. Like, which was it? Or a little bit of both?
What originally happened was Jim Paschke, who had been the Bucks play-by-play announcer for 30 plus years, had told the organization that he was retiring. And so the team knew that it was going to need to hire a new play-by-play announcer. And so with the organization knowing that, Peter Fagan said, okay, what if we see if, you can do it? And the organization hired me a coach. I would call games on Zoom with my agent at the time. My husband would help me. It was like his entire team effort. Jim Paschke, who still was working in his role at the time, would review all of my games. Marcus Johnson, the analyst, would do the exact same thing. I mean, I really had a village. And I had been doing these mock games. So I would record my sideline hits at the time. So whenever people saw me on TV during that 2021 season, we would record my hits and I would do a mock game as the play-by-play announcer with Steve Novak on the side. Wow. And I get to hear the producer. I'd go in and out of break. Like, I got real-time experience. It was so valuable. And got to a point where they said, we think you're ready for a real game. So I did that real game. I didn't end up getting the full-time job, but that opportunity and those, it was a group, everybody in his name was a group of men. Right? Those men really put me in a position that set me up for my national gig with NBC. I get to call New York Liberty games in the play-by-play seat. I'm going to call women's college basketball this winter. All of that stemmed from a group of people seeing something in me that I didn't even see myself. When Peter and Jim Paschke said, so I think you could do play-by-play. I was like, you're nuts. What are you talking about?
Me? Who, me? Wait, what?
Myself. And shout out to everyone that I just named. I'm probably forgetting people that saw something in me before I really saw it come to fruition.
I think it's so cool watching men in leadership positions, especially in the NBA. There's a lot of men in the NBA. Have an opportunity to put someone else and give them a seat at that table, right? And give them an opportunity because, not only are you getting the opportunity, you're getting the experience, but you're getting to meet people that can put you in different places. And we always talk a lot on the show about how it's not exactly what you know, it's who you know and how you treat people and how you show up and how you're prepared. Because at the end of the day, you can be phenomenal at your job, but it might just not be the right time and fit for you. And that's a hard thing I think about in my career. Like when you get the no, we talk all the time, like you're going to get a billion no's. Mm-hmm. Don't stress the no's. Like Kris Jenner, like no just means you're not the right person or I'm going to do it somewhere else. It's like you have to really be okay putting yourself out there in a space like you just said. I didn't think I could do it. Like I didn't think I was ready. Like I didn't see it in myself. And to have men and women championing for you to push you to grow is such a magical space. And that just speaks to the culture that's there, right? Like it speaks to the culture of growth and inclusion that not every team is ready to embrace, to be honest with you. They still have a lot of work to do, but I think that watching you do that was so special, and hearing you thank other people is so cool, because that's not always the case. It's like, oh, I didn't get it. But you're like, no. This was like a village that got me ready. Girl, say less. Say less. No. Well, what? So you had it. Like, what went into that day for you? Like, were you nervous? Were you excited? Or were you just like...
Nerves.
Nerves?
Most frequently. Well, it was more of a dope fail than okay, you got to do amazing. I just didn't want to mess up. And I know that's an awful perspective to have, but when you're you're like out of this world, it was like, okay, just say all the shit. Because as a play-by-play broadcaster, you're talking straight for 3 hours. And so I just really wanted to do well for all those people, for myself, but for all the people that believed in me. And there were so many people waiting for me, not to fail, but it's like, you're not used to my voice. You're definitely not used to a woman's voice. I am younger. I mean, there's so many things that were just different about me being in that chair that day. And so hopefully it's just my little role in normalizing that anyone can have any seat on the broadcast.
I love that. And I think, so in your role, there are so many young women who would, love to have your position. What kind of sacrifices have you made? I don't think people see what you're doing, like behind the scenes, or even like what you've gone through. Like, what sacrifices are you making to, get to be the Bucks reporter, and then now at NBC? Like, kind of talk on that, and for like the women that are trying to have your role one day, what they need to do to kind of get there.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned so many people wanting to be in your position. It really allows you to stay grounded when you do have those days where you feel like you're missing out on everything, or you don't have the normal 9 to 5, and you just want that one Saturday to go out and have fun with your friends or whatever it may be at that family function. And it's that one thing that brings you back, like, get yourself together, okay? Because there's a long list of people who was in your spot.
Right.
You want to go to the department with a gas booking, okay? But sacrifices, my goodness, time. Time with the people that you love, in celebrations. There's countless weddings, bachelorette parties, birthday parties. There are even instances where I've had to choose between going to work and going to funerals. Moving away. I mean, I feel like I'm so grateful that I have a partner in life, but we moved to all these cities that we don't know anyone. I talked about Greenville, North Carolina. That's in a comfort zone because I had just went to Elon, and North Carolina is where we have a lot of our people. That I moved to Denver, Colorado, though. That's tough. And then this Milwaukee move, we had just bought a house in Denver. We thought we were going to be there for a little bit. And I get home and I'm like, by the way, the Bucks offered me a job, and I had to take it. This is what I wanted to do. And we moved here. My husband had never been to Milwaukee before. He got I found us a place to live, and I was like, okay, here we are. So just a lot of faith, a lot of hard work. You mentioned the no's. There's been a lot of no's, and we talk about how we're supposed to brush them off, but they do hurt. The internet is cruel. People always have things to say about your appearance or your tone, or, we're human, so we do have insecurities, whether it be, your looks or your weight or whatever it may be. And people feel like they have the ability to speak on your craft publicly. Imagine if, you were an accountant, right? Like, I'm going to your job every day and say you're a good accountant or bad accountant.
Right.
It's on TV and feels like they can say you're a good reporter, bad reporter, good announcer, bad announcer based on their opinion. It's such an opinionated business. You got your tough. But I think playing sports helped me with all that, because I've heard no's. I've had people scream at me. I've tried my best at something and still failed. I've achieved success, right? Like, there's so many different emotions that you feel as an athlete, and I think that really prepares you for this business.
How do you feel for you? Obviously sports has made great strides in inclusion for women in sports, but like for you, you've worked for a bunch of different organizations, a bunch of different teams, different networks. You've had a lot of experiences. How for you have you been able to kind of feel safe and secure in such a male-dominated industry? I mean, it's intimidating is a word I like to use, because it's not, I'm not fearful, but I'm like nervous, I'm excited. Like sometimes, and it's that imposter syndrome that we're all stuck on right now of like, who am I to be here? And then you feel bad when you're suddenly like, no, I should be here. And then you feel bad, you feel guilty, you feel that way. And it's just like a whole nother cycle of fun. How have you tried to, really put yourself in a space where, like, if you've had challenges being a woman in this industry?
Well, you're speaking to the choir, Kate, when you talk about imposter syndrome. I can't tell you how many times my mind, and sometimes even our words go through, do I deserve to be here? Have I thought through enough to get here? Why did somebody else get this? Instead of just sitting in where we are and being grateful for where we are. I've made a huge stride mentally in terms of my confidence in this space when I gave the power back to myself. And I know how much preparation I put in. I give myself grace if I make a mistake. And I just feel like I have worked my way to the point. And that's why preparation is so key, because you have so much more confidence when you prepare. And then being grounded in spaces outside of your work, because that if something happens at work, you're reminded it's what you do, it's not who you are. And so being really intentional with the village and the company that you keep. So yeah, okay, somebody at work made me bad, somebody at work talked down to me. I know who I am. I know what I value. I know that I am valued, and you don't control those barometers for me. I can control, and that's allowed me to be more comfortable to, well, I'm a sweatpants girl. Like, if I'm not on television, I'm going to be in sweats and in sneakers, and that's how I come as I am. And I've gotten way, I'm like, this is who I am, take it or leave it, right? And I know when to be professional and when to dress it up, but just being okay with who I am and realizing exactly who I am is enough, because there's a reason. Like, if you can't just be yourself, there comes a point where being someone other than yourself doesn't continue, and so they're gonna realize when you're not being yourself. And
it's hard to keep up.
It's
you
hard.
Know what I mean? It's hard to keep up, and it's hard to feel good about it. And it's like one of the things in like my career is like when you change yourself in order to get something, you then have to keep that same self in order to keep it. And you feel like you can't ever really go back to who you were, because what if they take it because I'm not that person? Instead of just being like, what's for me will find me, and what is for me will not miss me, right? Like
it's going to do that though as we grow.
Oh, like 1,000%. The young Kate would have been like,
yeah.
Yes, it is. And you have to get it wrong. And I think that's where like I draw from too. And I always say this to Megan is like, if I can share an experience where I got it wrong because I learned from it and grew from it, but it gives somebody else the space to say like, okay, let me take that lesson and learn from it too. Instead of it being this like perfect little layer of fun, like somebody's, 10th chapter to your second chapter, it's not comparable. Like you're chasing something that isn't meant for you in that moment. And I think sometimes, especially in an industry that's so fast paced, like sports sleeps for none. Like you talked about sacrifice. It doesn't wait. It does not care what is like. It truly doesn't. And you have to realize what you're willing to miss and what you're willing to not miss for yourself in order to feel good about it. Because at the end of the day, it's a bit, those guys that get traded, it's a business. Like at the end of the day, they love you to death. It's a business, and it doesn't change how they feel. It's just part of what you're signing up for. Yeah. And we hear so many guys talk about like, it's a commitment. Like if you want to work in sports, it is a straight up lifestyle commitment you are signing up for. And it is a hard thing to grasp, especially for these younger people that are like, I want to work in sports and I want to do all the cool stuff. And I'm like, well, what about all the really hard shit? Like that's the stuff that's not cool. But in order to get to the cool stuff, you have to get through the hard stuff. Right. But no one tells them that. And that's why I think it's so impactful for, especially this show, to be vulnerable of like, it's not always pretty. It's ugly. There are days you cry. There are days you're like, why me? And then you get through it. I have a 24-hour rule. 24 hours, gotta go. Like after 24 hours, it's like a news cycle. Like, gotta go. Like I can't carry it forward. And otherwise you're just constantly carrying stuff that's just, it's not productive to your own mental health. And especially with as cruel as people can be on social media about stuff.
Well, you mentioned too, you do the hard stuff to get to the fun stuff. I feel like sometimes we do have to code switch in the beginning to get to a place where we can bring our authentic selves to work. I feel like that's just been my journey. Yeah. I was at a space where I felt like I had to dress up just to go to practices or, whatever it may be. And now, because I do have a certain reputation in the spaces I'm in, I can bring just Zora to work. And that is a much more peaceful place.
I love that. I love that. And especially like being a woman in sports in this male dominated industry, how do you look and how do you want to inspire younger women just in general in the sports world?
Yeah. Oh, first off, it would be irresponsible of me to not realize that people are watching, right? Yes. And I did the same thing when I was trying to get a job in the NBA. Like, you follow every single person that has one of those sideline roles. There's only 30 of them in the NBA. So you'd be blind not to realize that people are watching, not to realize that people are watching. But at the same time, I'm doing it just to be a good human being. And I'm not doing it to be this larger than life figure. I'm just doing it to be good at it, and to hopefully bring some people along the way. But I'm not trying. I don't want to be a star.
Zora's like, I'm not trying to be famous, or I have to sit in hair and makeup every day. I'm gonna need to be in my sweats because I'm for it.
Help people when they ask if I can help. That's all I really want to do.
Yeah.
I always find too, especially as women, like, and Megan has such a unique opportunity at NFL Network too, is there's so many young girls that don't know what is in sports and who can work in sports. And while we all sit here and say, oh yes, there's plenty of women in sports, there are thousands, probably millions of young girls that don't even understand that that's an option for them because they don't come from a community or a culture that embraces that growth and that independence. And so if some little girl can, and that's the whole point of Her Table, can see you and say, I want to be her, right? Like, that is what this is. And it's showing and telling and sharing, because I didn't have this growing up. Like, there was no, and I don't know about you, like, there was no female NBA agent that I was like, I want to be like her. And that's my whole dream. It just, my path continued down to get to a place where I am today. And so I feel a responsibility to navigate that so well that the next me has it just a little bit easier, and then they'll want to do it for the next them. And it's this cycle of making life better and easier for the next generation and the next version of yourself.
Couldn't agree more. It's may not be why you started out, but you realize part of the privilege of being who you are and who we all are is to bring up the next person. Like, you cannot be in these roles without wanting to be each one teach one. Representation is so important. Love the fact that you said it being easier for the next person. And so many times people ask, like, what's the dream? I think, like, at one point it was just to, like, the dream was that local news reporter in Greenville, North Carolina. And then the dream was to work for an NBA team. And then the dream was to be on national television, and so it's constantly evolving. And I think one of the most powerful things we can do is what you all are doing right now, is sharing their stories. Because then all these young women realize they're not alone. Like, when they're, starting out and trying to figure it all out, they realize, like, they're not alone. We have all started somewhere, and we're all still, I began this podcast, like, we're all still trying to figure it out. I wish there was a roadmap. If you all have it, can you lend
We definitely don't. I think we might have, like, a little scavenger hunt, I think would be as close as we're going to get at this point of, like, check this box and get here. But it's, for me, when I look at women in their role on the sidelines and how it's evolved, and I think there's been some great trailblazers that have come and put us in a place and put women in a place to command respect on the sideline. I think for a long time, people thought, let's just have the pretty girl on the sideline, someone chirping in her ear. But the reality is, they're not, like, this is a real job. You have to put in time and study and practice. This isn't just a talking head. This is, like, real. How much preparation goes into setup for you?
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'll just do this week. This happens to be a week where I'm doing Big Ten college football on NBC, and preparation started as soon as the game that I had the week prior ended. So Sunday morning, my producer reached out and said, who do you want to talk to? I'm covering Purdue and Minnesota. So I've got two players, one person on offense, one person on defense with each team that I talk to privately, away from the group of producers or the play-by-play or the analyst, because I'm the role of the reporter this week. And I have to watch those two teams, their previous games, the entirety of the games, know what happened, pick two players, and have questions written out for each of those players. I have to know their backgrounds, I have to know where they're from, I have to know their strengths, their weaknesses. We have to have a full-on conversation. And then I log all those things. I come up with various stories based on our conversations. Then we have group meetings. We've got meetings with Minnesota, meetings with Purdue. We've got meetings as a production group. We travel on a Thursday for a Saturday game. And there's meetings Thursday, there's meetings Friday. There's so much more preparation than I think people realize just for one game. And in reporters, I think like I may total like 10 minutes on the broadcast, on a 3-hour broadcast. But you want to be prepared for whatever opportunity you get. And so that's what I do each and every week. I've got sheets with every single coach's name on it, traders, the hospitals that these teams use, you name it. We look into it so we're ready for whatever happens. And I take pride in all my preparation and doing the work. I'm really serious about the reporter role and not just being a talking head. But someone who actually cares about the sport and cares about elevating these athlete stories in the case of college student athletes. And I just want to bring my A game every single week. It's the only thing that reminds me and gives me the same adrenaline as playing. So I got into this because it's so, it's like a roller coaster every single week.
I love it. I think too, like something like me working at NFL Network, like you have to come prepared. So when you're talking about the preparation that goes into, every story or every player that you cover, every game that you cover, that's crazy. Just like for 10 minutes.
Right.
But you have to know your stuff. You have to research, be educated, and then be confident in your delivery. If it's a meeting or if it's even just being on camera. What are some obstacles, or like, was there ever a situation where it was a hard obstacle that you had to overcome? And like, can you go over that and kind of shed some light on that and how you were able to turn maybe a negative experience into a positive one?
Yeah, I'll go back to the story that I originally shared. The play-by-play opportunity with the Bucks and all that went into me being a candidate for that role and putting in so much time and effort. You want to talk about sacrifice, like Christmas Eve, my agent and I calling games over Zoom, and all leading up to that amazing moment of getting that one game, and then you don't get the job. And I was crushed. I was crushed for myself. I was crushed for all of those people that put in all that time to help me, and I wasn't good enough. That's how I felt.
Wow.
I was crushed because I felt like it was an immense opportunity to have a Black woman be the first and to set up so many other people. And again, I felt like I failed. So I spiraled into that, we call it woes be, when you need like, all right, everything's not, but I did. It took me a long time to get out of that hole. And now I'm to a point where I talk about it in a positive light. All of this stuff for me. I didn't have that perspective when it all happened, but oh my goodness, it set me up for so many amazing things, that it happened just the way it was supposed to. This NBC job is amazing. I get to cover so many different sports. And one of the things I've always wanted to do is multiple things. Like I love reporting, but I also love play-by-play. I get the opportunity to host podcasts, so I get to flex all these different muscles. Whereas if I would have gotten that job, it would have been amazing, but I would be doing play-by-play every single day, basketball only. And I would have had to be locked in a way where I probably wouldn't have had time to do all these other things that I get to do in the business, whether it's call New York Liberty games or do NBA Summer League, whatever it may be. And it's easier to look back on it now, but it really, really did have such a positive outcome for me. But in the beginning, you mentioned that word obstacle. It felt like you bump that just would never end.
What got you out of that? What got you out of the rabbit hole? I think, I go through that too, where you're like, okay, what did I do wrong? What could I do better? And you overanalyze and you criticize. Like you become your own worst enemy at that point, for right or for wrong. What helped you get out of that rabbit hole that you were in after that?
Yeah, I think it was multiple things. One, realizing I wasn't the person that I wanted to be. Like, you got to be a good loser, right? And I wasn't. I wasn't the best to lose. I was kind of salty.
I listen, I'm with it. I'm here for all of it. You got to get through the tunnel. It starts in one place and ends in another. Yeah. Salty.
Like, get over yourself. So just get out of that well. I talked about that village outside of work. I had put so much into work where I neglected that village a little bit. And so I focused more on my people and myself, honestly. And when I put emphasis on areas outside of work, it really reminded me what was most important. And it just gave me a different perspective on Zora. You have this amazing job. You got all these amazing people that just all the blessings and all the amazing things that came out of it. So sometimes I think it takes those no's get you back on track and realize that it really only takes one yes. And NBC did say yes. And now instead of doing, play-by-play for one team, I'm doing it on a national level. So, it just worked out.
And Zora said, look at me now. Look at me now. No. It's funny to me because I'm in an industry too, right? Where it's you're in one day, you're out the next, right? It's so volatile. And I think sports move so fast that you feel like you have to keep up, you got to keep up with the Joneses and you got to do what everybody else is doing. And it's so hard to just be in a moment in time where you're like, I'm so damn proud of myself. Like, you know what? Like, you got to get to the place where you're like, okay, Zora, okay, didn't work out. But you know what? Had you not done what you did, you might not have set it up for someone else. And I'm a big believer in what you put out, you get back. And you unintentionally or intentionally set the stage of what the level of expectation was going into that for now. You over prepared. You were ready. You killed it. Anybody that's coming to the table with less than that isn't you, right? So it's you've also shown yourself that, for me, you go through all this and you work so hard, and then if you don't get it, the next time you're like, I came out the other side. Where's the fear? Where's the fear in this of if I don't win? And you're like, okay, the sun came up, nothing really bad happened, sucked for a couple of days, but there's no Armageddon. So you almost learn to push yourself more. And I think that's what I'm hearing in your story that's so cool is through your experiences, you've grown and you've evolved. And that's the true definition of a leader and a culture changer and someone blazing a path is they don't do one thing. They do a lot of things and you grow and evolve through them as opposed to just I'm good at one thing and that's all I know how to do. You're like, okay, didn't get that, moving on to the next, right? And you're embracing those opportunities instead of being fearful of them.
Well, and I think I learned the power of and. I can be where I'm at and still pushing for more.
Right.
It doesn't have to be exclusive. Yeah.
Well, and I think too, you talked about family and your village, right? I'm guilty of that. Of you spend so much time in your craft and in your career at a young age that you feel like it becomes who you are instead of bringing who you are to your work. And it is, if I look at a young Kate and I'm like, who is that? And I was actually joking with Megan. There's a picture of me in this office on the wall, and I was gonna put it in the shot, but it's me with dark hair because I thought I had to have dark hair and I thought I had to wear a polo shirt and I had to do all these things. It doesn't even look like me. People be like, that's not even you, because I was in this space of I had to be what everyone else was instead of who I was, not realizing there was someone watching me looking for the validation that if she can be her, then I can be myself. And I was missing that for young girls. And I kicked myself, but now I take it to the next level of it's okay now. You can do that.
You are so better and it's who you are.
Some days I'm like, there's a little room for growth here, Kate. We need to get past it. I want to ask you, how do you balance your role as a reporter for Notre Dame football, USFL, you're a commentator for Big Ten. Who manages your schedule, girl? Because girlfriend, you must have 5 schedules, color coordinated. How are you managing all of this?
A calendar and a to-do list. And if it's not the calendar on the to-do list, it does not get done. It's that.
Yes.
Anytime
I'm here. Yes.
I have to write it down. People call me crazy because I literally have a to-do list, if I made it for my entire day, but that's how I manage my time. And that's how I get things done. My calendar, I make sure it's backed up and saved on multiple devices. I've been Apple, please don't prove for me. These calendars are, foolproof. That's it. And there's a new thing. Learning when to say I can't.
Good.
Or
How hard is that? Okay, talk to this because, it's one thing I've talked about on this podcast is even in anywhere I speak is, at a young age, it's say yes to everything so that you get the experience. And then at a certain point, you have to evolve to what can I give? Because I can't give to everything and you have to kind of protect I use the saying of like, I don't match energies, I just protect mine.
yeah.
Like, it's right for the people in the back. Like, I can't match you where you are, but I'm going to protect where I'm at. And you have to adjust yourself because you can get swallowed up in this big world of sports of having to be everywhere and do everything and feel like you're missing. I went through a phase where it was like, if I don't do this, someone else is going to do it.
Yeah.
If I don't say yes, then someone else is going to do it and then they're going to replace me or they're going to go to them for that. Instead of just being like, okay, and like, I'm a human being and I have to practice what I tell all my clients to do, which is like, they have to find a balance for themselves. But how do you manage saying no back in younger years? Like, did you have that same experience of doing yes all the time to then you had to get to the like, I need help or I can't make this or I just don't have it to give?
I think that comes with not only professional growth, but personal growth as well. Mm-hmm. When you become more secure in who you are as a human being, it becomes, 1, easier to say no if you don't have the capacity, and 2, easier to cheer other people on. I can't do it. I'll look to find someone who I know who can do it.
Yes.
Let's be intentional with our here because everybody else is, right? And so really realizing there is enough room for all of us. There's enough platforms, sports, networks, opportunities, roles for all of us to win. And so, I think once I became more secure in who I was as an individual and as a professional and realizing like things will come for me. And even if it's not my time, you mentioned the no, it's like, no, not yet, Chris Jenner, not right now, but I can cheer on whether it's a friend or someone I don't know, I can cheer them on when they get that. So I think that comes with growth as a human being. It takes some time to get to that point. And I think you're going to be better off for your yeses when you have a space where you can match energy.
I love that. I feel like I even so struggle with like, going in to like work. And if like, I really probably shouldn't be able to like do it right now, but I'm going to say yes just because like, I don't
yourself to say yes. Like you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, exactly. But then you gotta find that balance. Okay, now I see that you got some Emmy awards behind you, which is so incredible just to be able to like have that feat. So you were an Emmy Award winner in news. How have you taken that experience and translated that into the sports you cover now? That's incredible.
Well, first off, it's even growth for me to have these Emmys behind me because I didn't even used to bring them up. My parents like, Zora, so
yes, that's that imposter syndrome of like, should I have this? Is this being too much? No, girl, you worked your ass off. You earned that. Put it up there so we can champion it.
As far as like what I've read over from news to sports, everything, my foundation of how I tell a story, I learned in news. How to be on time in terms of like, we can slot in news, but when like you gotta get your story done in a certain amount of time. If it's a 30-second story, 1-minute story, 5, 10-minute story, being able to tell stories, different parameters, being able to cultivate relationships with different types of people, superstars, rookies, people that are undrafted, whatever it may be, high school, college, the pros, anybody. People from different backgrounds, people with different values and beliefs. Like news taught me that. What else? Being confident on camera, knowing how to slow down when I talk on camera, because a lot of times we feel like we're talking slow, but the audience can't digest it at the rate that we are delivering it. Just so many kind of nerdy nuances that news taught me and allowed me to get the reps every single day. I was on television multiple times a day, every single day. And in a capacity where I could make mistakes, and my news director may get on me, but it's not like, the number of people that see me now. And so I got to make my mistakes in a safe environment so that I was ready when I had all these people on the internet, as I call them, thinking, they know what I do. And so I have tough skin for that. But everything that I have is in part because of what I learned in those years of both Greenville, North Carolina, and Denver, Colorado.
What has been one of your like favorite interviews, interactions? Like, I love storytelling. I love when people get to understand a person and not just an athlete. What has been one of your favorite interactions with, whether as a coach or a player, where you felt like you were kind of the springboks that probably showed the world a little bit of who they were instead of who they thought they were?
Okay. So I'll start serious, but then we can kind of get caught up a little bit. And I'll just take it from my time with the Milwaukee Bucks. My first year there, so that would have been the 1920 season, December. The majority of the roster went to a prison and visited a prison, and they were in a semicircle with people that were incarcerated. So it was like Giannis and then somebody who was incarcerated, Cup forward, somebody who was incarcerated, George Hill, somebody who was incarcerated. Like it was, I sat just watched all this unfold, and they talked like they had known each other for years. They were vulnerable. They told stories, and they talked about what they were nervous about. Rob Butler was there. It was just, I had never witnessed anything like it. And so after this roundtable, the NBA players or the coaches and the people that were incarcerated played a basketball game with some of the Bucks coaches. So like Coach Bud and some of the assistants, and the whole Bucks like in arena entertainment crew, like basketball was, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Like basically Bucks Rio was in a prison. It was, it really impacted me in a way deeper than when I got on that bus that day to go to it next. We got to do a story about this. And so basically I let the men tell this story. I wrote in and out of the stories of that roundtable. And then I said, just since you start to cry, we go to a basketball game and everybody's cheering. Coach Bud knocks out a three and everybody's going crazy. Popcorn slide in the air. And the whole theme of it was the power of an orange ball. Like the power that basketball has, or sport in general, to bring people together. And yes, that happens to be NBA players and people that were incarcerated. But I'm talking about people that have different views, different backgrounds, all walks of life, look different. And so that probably was just a really, really impactful day for me. And then to add on to that scene, maybe 6 months later, the Bucks are in Orlando, we're live on television, the entire team decides not to play. And we talk about it for 2 hours straight, no scripts, no plan. You just spoke from the heart. And I felt like I had responsibility in that moment to paint a picture of what that offering was like and how beautiful it was for people from, at that time, I know Soba was on the team. He's from Turkey, Giannis is from Greece. You have people from all over the United States. And they come together in a locker room and say, no, like a playoff game isn't worth all of the ridiculousness that is going on in our country right now. So those are some of the really impactful and bigger than basketball moments that I've had. And I'm so grateful for the Bucks. They allow me to, like, that's what I'm talking about, bringing your full self and things that matter to work. And then on the lighter side of things, so it was my responsibility in those moments to tell stories of these athletes. Post-game interviews, stuff like some other stuff. They said a guy, Jabon Carter, he's all in Bulls right now. And Jabon, these aren't his favorite thing. And he wanted to give you like really, really short answers. And he had like a career high at OKC, a couple seasons ago. And I interviewed him after the game. And I know Jabon's going to give me one-word answers. Hey, it's good. I was like, Jabon, I have 10 questions for you in this post-game interview. You normally get like 2. I was like, 10 questions for you. So either you can answer, the first couple like with full sentences, or I can get through all 10.
Or we're gonna be here all night, buddy. Like
he just had a quote. He had some quotes that are still on the internet to this day. They're like, TikTok motivational quotes. So shout out to Jabon Carter. And yes, like they became these moments, but it was my job to bring that out of him. He's such an amazing person. He's one of the funniest guys on the team, right? And so it was my job in his moment to shine, to show everybody else we trying to see behind the scenes when we're traveling and all that kind of stuff. So those were 2 very different scenarios, but how I see my role and how important it is for me to elevate these people that are going out on the stage every day and performing for our own entertainment is just to connect them to the fans a little bit better.
That's amazing. I feel like you're showing also like you're kind of the goofy side of it, but also like bringing that out of him. But then also you're telling the serious stories that need to be like told and shared with the world. So love that. I think I remember when Allie Clifton was on our show and we were asking her, like, how do you have those tough conversations with the athletes if they're losing and like they don't want to talk on air, or they don't want to, they just lost, they're not in the mindset. I mean, you played basketball, you know what it's like if you're not in the mood. Like, when do you know when to ask those questions to players when they win or when they lose, and kind of finding that balance and reading, the players that you work with?
It is a skill to be able to read the room.
You cannot teach that, no matter how many people want to tell you take a class. It is, you either got it or you don't got it. Like, it is two things in life. It is hard to teach somebody how to do that and do it quietly, not awkwardly.
Reading the room is paramount. And so that's the first thing that I do. Every athlete takes defeat, loss, obstacles differently. Some people, you can go right up to. Some people you can't. And so reading the room, but also that's when relationships are so important. And getting to know these athletes as human beings, because then when you do approach them and in some of the downtimes, they see you as another human being, one that's just doing their job, and two, they know where you're coming from. And on the flip side, I do have to do my job. And if they say no, I don't take it personal. Because I understand those moments. Maybe it wasn't at the NBA level, but I understand what it's like to just be annoyed and angry after whatever may have happened and not take it personal. So that mutual respect of both understanding we both have a job to do. But then I think they're more inclined to say yes when they know you a little bit better and when I approach it at the right time. I also want to shout out Allie Clifton and the sisterhood that is NBA professionals, reporters, hosts, plays. When I first got that Bucks job, I had a mutual friend who knew Allie, and she gave me her number. I reached out to her, and she was so forthcoming and so open to a person that she had never met. We talked about salary, we talked about travel, expectations, and for her to be, and I need to thank her in person for this, but just for her to be that honest with me when I was first coming into the NBA has stuck with me for a long, long time, and I so appreciate it. And if anyone ever reaches out to me, I make sure to give them that same space and same time that Allie gave me all those years ago. So, the sisterhood in the NBA is unbelievable. People talk about it, but it is just as good as advertised. And I love all those men and women that make up the reporters and hosts in the NBA.
I think there's just such a stigma, right? Of like, women are catty and they're all can't get along. And trust me, there are some where you're like, no, thank you. I'm not going to even sit here and lie to you and say they don't exist. But I think there's so many women who are just looking for someone to validate their experience and then also not want something from them, I think is important. And I listening to your story of your two favorite moments, I literally am just sitting here in awe, because had you not had that news experience, I don't know that you would have been able to deliver what happened in that locker room as eloquently and as a story and as news from a storytelling lens instead of through a sports lens, because that was big shit. That was, people were on the fence one way or the other. There wasn't a lot in the middle, and you were able to connect the two based on your experience and your expertise to be the right person in the right place at the right time to do that. And people trusted you to do that, because that could have gone sideways 8 ways from Sunday. Really, really bad. And so it's weird how the universe does that for you, right? It puts you in a place that you're prepared for without even knowing that that's where you were meant to be. It's wild to me. It's wild how it works.
The journey is not ours. We're just along for the ride, right?
We're just on it. We're just on the Incredicoaster, just waiting for it to slow down a little bit and jump off.
We want to slow down. We're all kind of nuts, and we like the twists and turns. And I always say all of us in this business are a little crazy. The great ones are crazy. And so I lead on that, and I see it as...
I'm with it all day long. Like, I already know. Tell me something I don't know, and you signed up for this. So it's all, it's all good. I think, when I look at you and your path, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I don't know.
What would you tell her?
Love yourself. Love who you are, what you bring to the table, your skill sets, your past experiences, your upbringing, Love all of it, the good and the bad, because it makes you exactly who you are. And there's no one on this planet like you. And that's why you're so special, because you're one of one and you're unique. And to learn to love myself a little bit earlier would have been nice. And to make sure that you lessen the comparisons and really take a hold of your journey and all that comes with it. At the same time, I would tell my younger self all these things, but I wouldn't change a daggone thing. This beautiful chaos that we call life, I wouldn't change anything. And I am who I am because of the mistakes and the highs and the lows. And there's going to be plenty more in the future. But I'm really finding some peace in this current place. And I think that's because of everything that I've been through. Yeah, you are enough, and just keep it going. That's my motto in everything in life, especially professionally. Just keep going, one foot in front of the other, one day at a time.
And LaRon Fernand says, keep showing up. The GM of the Charge, she said, just keep showing up. Just keep showing up. That's all you got to do. Keep showing up.
And you touched on, everybody has their own path. Everyone has their own journey. I think that's something that people forget because they can't help but compare themselves to others. Like, oh, I see, this woman who's this age and she's doing all these things. What kind of advice would you give to younger people? Because I feel like, especially in this day and age where social media is so prevalent and everybody, puts their best work out in front of, the world so everyone can see it. But it's like, and you can't help but compare yourself. I guess you say to those people, not to do that because you're on your own journey, you're on your own path.
Oh, it's so hard.
I know.
Right? A little comparison provides inspiration too at times. Really figure out what your dream is. What do you really want? Not what your algorithms say you want. Not what the people at work. Sometimes people at work, I'm at NBC and they'll bring up other networks. What do you really want? What's your dream? I think sometimes we go with society's dream and we chase that. And so just making sure whatever you're going after, it's what you really want and no one else. Because then it'll make the path a little bit better. And, maybe delete the apps every now and then.
Just auto eject. How has the transition been for you? Obviously you've worked across, news and sports top to bottom. How do you change your style, right? I think there's a different way to interview Giannis than there is to interview a freshman, in the Big Ten. They're not as I look at Giannis when he started and Giannis where he is now, and it is a product of environment and machine. But how do you change your approach or also just that level of comfort? Because it is intimidating to be like, okay, what I say matters here. And I see it with my clients of if I say something, I'm going to mess up. To get them to speak freely and openly without feeling like they're being judged or set up. Because we're living in the world of setups now. Everybody's trying to get them.
For sure. First and foremost, if I'm confident and I'm at ease and I'm comfortable, hopefully that rubs off on whoever I'm interviewing. Whether it's somebody of Giannis's caliber or, when I cover gymnasts, they could be 15 or 16 years old. Sometimes I get moments right before the interview. If it's somebody that I haven't met before, just to give them hey, you got this. How are you today? Great game, whatever it may be, just to break the ice in that moment. And then in asking my questions, making them as open-ended and as simple as possible, or using buzzwords that I know that they'll gravitate towards, whether it's their why, their motivation. For Giannis, family and loyalty are very important. So just knowing, maybe you haven't met that person, but when you're prepared, there's enough access to these human beings nowadays where you can tell what's important to them. And so being able to give them a platform to share what's important, depending on what the circumstances is. Post-game, is it pre-game, is it during the game? And just knowing what they care about and making sure they have the opportunity to share that on the interview and knowing it's their space to share, not mine. There are going to be times where, I do have to ask stern questions and very specific questions, but for the most part, it's their interview. I am just the catalyst and I'm the anchor. right? I'm just
Like the
connecting.
conduit. Yeah, exactly.
You were. Yeah.
It's so fascinating. It's the breadth of that is so, I mean, Megan, you do this at NFL Network. It's funny because I sit on the other side and I'm the one that's like, okay, be very mindful, be very aware, because unfortunately there are some people that they are trying to advance their own career based on what they get you to do or say. And that's what I hate sometimes about the industry is they have one bad experience and it takes forever to overcome it. And then there's the next person isn't that person. I'm not, even for like sports agents, it's like, oh, you guys are all slimy, gross people. And it's like, that might be over there. That's not over here. But I understand you might have had that experience. So I want to make sure that I go out of my way to try and give you a little bit more of a breath and reach to know that not everybody is out to be that same person.
Yeah. I think I started this with saying I'm not trying to be a star, right? There's no possible with what I'm trying to do. I'm really passionate about the craft and storytelling. And so that's my motive each and every time.
And I think that's really incredible too, because what's the transition like? Because before, you were covering the Milwaukee Bucks and you're with those players all the time. And to go from that to then now NBC, you're covering athletes that you don't know as well. And, what's the difference there and how do you make that transition?
It really puts your skills to the test because, with the Bucks, like all the guys know who I am and they're remarkable human beings. So maybe even if I got a stat wrong, they'd still give you a great answer because they're like, all right, it's Zora, like naughty nice, right?
Yeah.
Whereas now I'm covering different sports, as you said, many people that don't know me. And so the preparation is even more important because you have to gain their respect, sometimes by just your first question. What's really nice about like the network side, you see, like we do have so many meetings leading up to games. So by the time you get to game day, usually, and football's so hard because there's so many people, but usually like the main playmakers I've met before or I've asked a question, that was say hi. But first, Simone Biles, her first competition back, I had an interviewer after she finished performing. We had never met. I had never talked to her, and my first sentence is my question to her. And then think of a star of that magnitude, right?
Yeah.
And that being, it was sensitive too to her. She had overcome a lot of things just to compete again. And my first question, and it's not just the question, it's the cadence, it's the tone. And her knowing that it was a safe space, and I say safe space because anybody could hear what she said. But in terms of my questioning, like I wanted her to know, take it wherever she wanted to go. I was just there to guide the conversation.
And that trust too. That's incredible. So,
and that's what we keep hearing too, is especially for women in sports, you have to go out of your way to, I call it command respect and earn trust, right? Mm-hmm. It is not easy. It's not given. And it's oftentimes you're probably mistaken for someone else in a different role than the role you're actually there to do or to be a part of. Have you had that experience where you might have been, not necessarily overlooked, but probably in a space where people didn't expect you to be as powerful as you are or as important as you are, and you walk in a room and then people, they're like, who's that? And you're like, well, let me tell you.
All the time. I'll walk so many times. I'll walk in, they think that I'm in college. They'll think that I'm doing stats when I'm actually calling a game. They'll think, I get it about a lot of satisfaction being like, I'll play that play tonight. And I'll be like, that's my name right there. When you thought that I was like a runner or doing another job,
yeah.
Lots are important, but it wasn't in their mind that me walking up, however I look, that I could be in that role. So that's super empowering. And just knowing like how you carry yourself, come in confident, but also kind. And do the work and be serious about the work, and then respect is earned and you don't have to ask for it. Yeah. So, but oh my gosh, maybe like multiple times even
like today.
I got through TSA one time and they wanted to screen me further. Asked if learn how to bargain with me. And even in regular life, people are, underestimate.
People are just so unaware. Like literally, people just have such a great opportunity to be better. I've found like for me, when I'm in those spaces where people don't expect it to be me, they're expecting someone different.
Yeah.
I've now tried to use it to my advantage because it allows me to see people in their truest form. So before you know who I am, before you know what role I play or whatever, I get to experience you how you're going to experience other people without trying to be something different than who exactly you are. And sometimes it's great because I'm like, oh, wow. And then you get to talk to somebody, you're like, yeah, I just saw you like not be the best person to someone else, or I saw you talk down to someone, but it shows me who they are and then how I want to engage with them or invest in them or be around them, not because of who I am and what I can bring or what I do, but because of just who I am as a person and how they value people. So I've kind of taken that little approach of like, I'm just, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, you know, if you don't think I'm anybody, I'm going to let you keep thinking that till you get to learn that the hard way. And then you get to have your like, moment. And then you're going to be like, oh my God, what did I just say or do? Or what do they not know? You know what I mean? Do they not know?
God.
But it's like a great way to kind of flip it a little bit. Cause I used to get so offended. I used to be like, why don't, you know what I mean? Like, what, I can't be here? Like, what, you're expecting, you know, most are like, oh, you're Kate. And it's like, yeah, I know you're probably expecting something different, but hi, surprise.
Right.
Now it's like, you know, yeah, sure. You know, I don't, it's a healthy space to be because I don't expect anything from people. I just expect something from myself. And when I can get rid of their expectations and be sound in my own, it's so freeing. It honestly, maybe it's just that like you've got that tough skin. Some of it still hurts. I mean, some of it you get hurt and it's hard. But again, the sun comes up and you're like, I always say the sun comes up. He's not done with me yet. So there must be more work for me to do. So let me figure out what that is today.
On all the gems that you've dropped today. You don't need to come up with like 8 new ones for her table and we need a running list. Like, all right.
No, it's just there's something else for me to do today. I don't know what it is, but he'll tell me, you know, okay, I'm here. I'm awake. Let's get to it. Let's get on with it. But it's inspiring for me to watch and hear from you, especially in the NBA side and even from an NBC side. Like, you have taken every opportunity that you have been given, and whether it was a success or not, I don't even like the word failure. It wasn't the right time. I'm big on words right now. It's like, I don't want to say negative things, but you know, you've taken it to a place where you've learned a lesson, you've grown from it, and it's actually made you better than had it worked out. Because had it worked out, you might not have grown and gone through all of that growth to love yourself. And it is hard. I've been laying on that floor crying too, where you're like, why me? And now I'm like, girl, get up. Girl, come on, get up. It's coming today. Yep.
And it's powerful that you pick yourself up. You're not waiting for someone to call you. You're not waiting for whoever. No, we have the power to pick ourselves up. And it's that we can have our moment, our what was me moment. Yeah. And we can, all right, it's back to work. So.
Yeah. Well, I think too, you said earlier, Village, you know, one of the things I wish, and I encourage Megan to do this a lot too in her career, is share it with the people that mean something to you. So they understand why you're missing what you're missing. And it's not just like, oh, you're not here again. Oh, you're not this. Oh, you're not. That's like, they understand the sacrifices you're making and how hard that is for you so that they can support you and show up in a way for you that's impactful, not defeating, because it is easy if you don't work in sports to not understand. It's like, what do you mean you can't go to happy hour every day at 5? Like, no, it just doesn't work like that. Like, I wish, but that's not what I signed up for. But including like your family and your village in these moments that are not just your highs, but also your lows, so that you don't question who's in that village based upon what level you're at. They're just going to meet you every single time. I'm going to meet you at the top. I'll meet you at the bottom. And if we need to go through the trench, get a shovel. Like, but including them in that so that they can support you, because it's easy as a woman, I think, to be like, I got this. I can't be emotional. I can't share. I can't do all of those things. But the reality is, like, some of my best girlfriends in the last couple of years have saved me from some of my own darkest thoughts. Not because they understand the business, but just because they understand me. And it's like, girl, come on, let's go. Like, yep, sucks. Today sucks. Here we go. We're going out. We'll go do this. But you have to be willing to let people help you do that. That's a hard place because you want to be a strong, powerful woman. But at the same time, it takes that village to build that woman.
Yeah. There's empowerment in vulnerability. Yeah,
it is. And it's I've loved hearing your story today and you sharing it. And it's, every time we do this show, I sit back and I'm just like, again, you're in here talking about Allie Clifton.
Well,
like,
I know.
And you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't even know y'all knew each other. Like, I love that this show, it wasn't by design.
Well,
It
and
just-
JK and Aaron kicks my ass every now and then.
Yeah.
All these people.
Yeah.
It's a small world. So
Yeah, I mean, it's, but it just shows that you are a person and they value you and what you bring to the table. And I love seeing it. I love seeing women, and it's special to hear you talk about how like Allie made that impression on you and you're championing that forward, right? You now feel that responsibility to be for someone else what she was to you. That's what this is all about. Like literally, Megan, this is what Her Table is. It's building the next her. It literally is building the next her. And you're doing that.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. All for it.
It is. All day we're here for it. And I'll come to Milwaukee and see you, but it's going to have to be a little bit warmer.
And I'll turn your mind around about the fact that it's unbearable in January,
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, okay. And yeah. And
I want January, but
no, for sure. But I've loved sharing your story. Thank you so much for being so open and honest and just so positive in everything. I mean, your accomplishments are just through the roof. And if I ever see you do a Zoom or anything and those Emmys aren't in the background, no, I'm coming for you because I want to see those bad boys shine because they are well-deserved, earned, and they are not who you are, but a part of who you've become. And that is so special to see.
That was beautiful.
yeah.
Well, Zora was an amazing guest. Oh my gosh. I loved hearing her story, how she got to where she is. She's an Emmy Award winner. She was in news. She's covering national sports. Like, how great was she?
She was so easy to talk to. I think you see all these women on TV and you feel like they're so they're not approachable. They're very guarded. And she was so vulnerable with us about some like really highs and some really lows that she's had in her career. And I mean, talk about flex her Emmys in the background. I felt like, we weren't up to par here because she's won a lot of big time awards. But I think most importantly for me, she's so grounded and she's so positive and she gets that her path wasn't meant to be easy, but her path is solely hers. And hearing her talk about some of the things she covered from like a news perspective, mind blowing. But then for her to be one of the breaking people, like she literally broke the story in the bubble when the Bucks did not show up for the game because of what was going on in the world. That is so much pressure for someone to face. If you're not making that choice, you're just telling that story. And to hear how much she took advantage of that and she loved it and she thrived in it because she was made for it. Her experiences led her to that moment.
She was such an incredible guest and had such a great story. I mean, even from being the first female play-by-play for the Bucks, I mean, that is incredible in itself. But then you also hear like the sacrifices she's made, the hard work she puts into like each broadcast. Like when she was breaking down working a Big Ten game and she's starting right after the Saturday game and she's prepping all for like, only pretty much like 10, 15 minutes on air. I mean, that just shows her hard work ethic, her dedication, and really just like the kind of person she is. And she's such an inspiration to a lot of women out here.
We keep hearing like preparation is key, right? And I think she hit on that really hard for us about how, you have to be prepared and you never know what direction a conversation's going to go or the temperament of who you're interviewing and how it's going to turn. And so really being prepared. But I mean, she has been to the Olympics. For her to interview Simone Biles right after she returned from her break. I mean, I could have spent an hour asking her like, how was it? Were you like, just put me in that moment with you is what I wanted. Like break it down for me, put me in the moment. But just seeing her take such a responsibility and give herself so much grace too. I mean, for her to talk about how devastated she was when the change was made and she didn't get the job she worked so hard for.
Right.
How many times have we been in that scenario? So many women are in that scenario. Men, women, everyone are in this scenario. We work really hard and it's at the end of the day, you don't get it. But she's like, hey, you pick yourself up and you keep going and look at where she is. She's on freaking NBC for crying out loud, like covering every sport possible. And her calendar's color-coded, people. It's color-coded. It's backed up. It has to be scheduled. But that's what she has to do in order to thrive. She was amazing. I loved having her. She was just such a good soul to have on the show and inspire so many young women.
Yes, definitely. I had learned a lot from her, and I'm excited to see where she goes from here.
I know. We'll have to go check her out in Milwaukee. Well, that is it for us, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode of Her Table. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Let us know if you have a badass woman in sports you want to have on this show so we can celebrate and elevate every woman around the table. That's it for us at Her Table. We'll see you guys next week.